This next one, I'm hoping, maybe was a little bit more positive, but I feel like you had a whole midweek in general. The Ministry, let me not confuse it with the other Guy Ritchie's. The Ministry
Right.
of Ungentlemanly Warfare. I
Yeah.
saw you discovering this right before we came on.
Well, so because
Tell the
I, for
people.
some reason, was under the assumption that the 2019 film with Matthew McConaughey titled The Gentleman was a Matthew Vaughn movie. It's not a Matthew Vaughn movie. It's his former partner, Guy Ritchie, who made that film. Yet, despite using that title there, they are using that title again for the spin-off show that is now on Netflix that doesn't really have
The
the same
Gentleman.
cast, which is also The Gentleman, but don't confuse that with the ungentlemanly gentleman in the
There you
Ministry
go.
of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
I know you saw Henry Golding in The Gentleman. Don't get it twisted, bro. He's in The Ungentlemanly.
Right, exactly. They're
Yeah,
separate,
yeah.
and they're separate characters, separate Henry Goldings.
And if he appears in the miniseries on Netflix, that's just another thing going on. That's just Henry getting his goal. Don't even worry about it. But the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare actually pitches itself as being a true story. Yeah, you're
Based on? Based on?
Based on. Yeah, they go as
Yeah?
far as saying like
Important two
because
words?
Ian Fleming, famous author Ian Fleming was a part of like the behind the scenes of getting these guys together. This almost like MI6 type crew during World War II. That there's inspirations here from these gentlemen, or ungentlemanly people that may have inspired none other than James Bond.
Yeah. And they
this
also
inspire
have like
you?
a whole epilogue with all the real life people and all the amazing accomplishments they got up to, aside from being the basis for a Guy Ritchie movie.
I thought it was decent.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people have saying this is sort of Guy Ritchie's a version of Inglourious Bastards, you know,
Yes,
crossing like
through and
Dunkirk with Inglourious Bastards. It's historical revisionism. It's a very like optimistic and, you know, I don't want to say like patriotic in the like nationalistic sense, but it's sort of like a very second grader's point of view of how we won the war, but you know, in a fun way, not in like a in a rewriting history way, but as kind of like these historical figures as almost like comic book style heroes. They walk into a gunfight and barely break a sweat and mow down hundreds of Nazis without ever taking a bullet, right? Like these are extremely badass, cartoonish action heroes, and it's got kind of like a glib sense of humor that will probably be, that is in some ways reminiscent of like the Marvel sort of popular kind of quippy style of jokes. But I don't know, for the most part, I felt like the tone of this movie worked for me. A lot of that is because of the performances from this cast. I thought he assembled not only like a pretty charming collection of people, but this might be my new favorite Henry Cavill performance.
It's pretty decent. I liked his suaveness in The Man from U.N.C.L.E. I don't fully love that movie, but I thought he looked cool in it. I thought he was great as the villain in Fallout. I like him doing this type of, like, I don't like the Argyle stuff. That's him playing Man of Uncle way too seriously. I like this loose, kicked back. This man was almost flirting with the people he was helping with. There are points where the boys do flirt with each other. They're giving over-unders on if they're going to make it. And it's like the bets on against them. You had mentioned Marvel. I think it's more 80s. I think they're trying to do that throwback to what would have been the old A-Team, what would have been just these group of guys who try to get together to get the mission done. They do the cigar blowing. They do the one-liners. They're always walking away from an explosion. So in that, like, it's cliche, but it's cool for what they do many times because we haven't seen these people do this stuff. Alan Richson, just having him be this, like, Dutchman who's
I
just
wanted more.
like a... Right, he's like a video game character. He picks up a new thing. We're like, we just leveled up. Let's go with the axe.
He
'Cause I
looks
just
like
saw
a
what you
video
did with
game
Little Pig.
character. That is a swole individual.
Those behind the scene pictures with how much he overtowered our last Superman
Yeah.
made me rethink everything. Yeah, I was like, they don't stand a chance with this man here. Even Alex Pettyfer coming in. Obviously, he's been a pretty good actor, I think, throughout the years from the Magic Mike role. I'm number 4, but he comes in as kind of like the guy they have to save at first before he brings out the game plan. Hero Fiennes, who I know from the After series, actually coming in as more of a comedic role. And Henry Golding as well, who we had mentioned earlier, being more of a suave character in the Gentleman movies, actually being an arsonist, more of a twerpy kind of guy. He's the one who's doing like the bets on his own team. So I like the fact that they're all able to bring a different character and a different side to it. But I think the standout would have been Asa Gonzalez. Like, she's the one coming in. And while the guys are doing all this side work, which I think we should also mention is they're Churchill's boys. That's a big thing that they mentioned, that they know about this story because of, like, his declassified documents. Which I thought was
right,
really
and they're
interesting.
like on a secret mission from Winston Churchill to sort of stop the whole mission revolves around stopping the supply chain for German U-boats, and if they can stop the delivery of certain products, then the U-boats won't be able to function, and Germany will lose the tide of power in the war.
And I like that it was simple because they do a lot of stops along the way. So the fact that we knew that there was just one end goal, I thought was decent because you're doing several stops with the boys and then with Asa's character. She, in particular, it's her and Mr. Heron, who I know I've seen in several other movies, but she in particular is supposed to be like the femme fatale who's trying to get with the commandeer, and she's got these like crazy sequence. Yeah.
She's kind of like a honeypot in the movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that the real life story went a little bit deeper in that honeypot aspect of it, but they keep her very, dialogue driven. She's telling riddles to this guy, and she's also not afraid to show some, gun action, and there's a lot of Deus Ex Machinas as well that happen with people, rescuing each other at the nick of time. But I thought that the balance between the scenes were done very well, especially with her character.
Yeah, I mean, for a movie that is about this kind of like intercontinental journey where a large part of it is about how long it takes to get things in position. Characters are able to show up like just in the nick of time or deliver the message very conveniently, and that sort of contributes to that cartoonish, old-timey action hero vibe that you get from the movie. I think, to me, part of that also made the movie feel a little bit inert in points. There's a lot of like waiting for everybody to get to one place and waiting for, talking about, okay, we're going to do this plan, and then waiting for the plan to actually kick into action. But like, you get these sequences that are pretty fun and dynamic, where you get, these like amazing looking movie stars acting a badass and heroic, and I think it's those bits that are pretty satisfying, are a decent amount of fun. Guy Ritchie has always directed kind of like very dynamic gunplay since early in his career, and like Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels and stuff like that. So I don't know. I had a decent time with it. I wouldn't say that you need to like rush out to the theaters for it. For me, it's like a kind of firm 3-star movie.
Yeah, I think I'm around there as well. I was trying to pull up a picture of Rory Kinnear because he plays Churchill in the movie, and it took me until that final scene to really look at him, and I'm like, damn, bro. The stuff
Are you the men from Men?
You're the men from Men. What did you think about that aspect, though, of having it be Churchill's secret people? If they're working bad on the other side of the war, then we need to do our stuff in secret.
I mean, it adds, it's again like kind of that cartoonish, silly nature of it, because I think it lends itself to that idea of being kind of like a almost childlike
I like what you said, the
action
second
hero
graders.
story.
Yeah, the second graders look at this. It's like you're saying,
Exactly,
see,
right?
We did have to do some stuff outside of the line, boys and girls, but hey, it worked. You're here. You're alive.
Exactly. Like, there were, stuff that was conducted in secret, and I'm sure there's lots of things that you could look into that Winston Churchill did outside of the official communications. But the directness here, the way that it's like, Churchill walking in on like a what's it called, Morse code message or stuff like that. Like,
yes.
It just adds to the kind of playful nature of the film. It's not taking this history very seriously, and it's not as like, grotesquely rewriting it the way that Tarantino does in Glorious, where there's no like moment where we machine gun Hitler in the face. It's more triumphant and just, I don't know, good. I guess good natured. Can we say that about a movie where like hundreds of people die as long as they're Nazis?
Right, it's just like pawns. It's a little chess thing. You'll have a character talking the whole movie, and then they'll just toss them to the side a little bit.
Yeah, right.
But I will say, if you're watching World War II movies, especially in this era, this would be a perfect complement to The Darkest Hour. You can watch The Darkest Hour, then you have the funnest hour over here. So if you're curious, I think it's worth maybe renting it. You don't have to leave to the theaters for it. But I was surprised with the sock 'em up type of war beat 'em up movie that it was, and all the boys were swole. They look pretty badass. So shout out to them.
I could have done with even more of their dynamic, particularly Alan Ritchson and Henry Cavill have this like back and forth very early in the film. That like
I would
just play those characters, keep playing those like silly Swedish fishermen.
I didn't mind Asa. But it's like, I thought it was just gonna be the boys. I could have taken a whole movie with the boys. Yeah.
Yeah, and it like I don't have a problem with her role in it or anything, but it feels like they didn't have as much fun. She's where the movie gets a little bit more serious, where she gets a lot of the back and forths across the villain, and they're trying to establish how much of a threat he is. Whereas when you're hanging out with the boys, it's a good time.
You're just hanging out with the boys.
It's the boys. She got to
sing on. She got to sing on camera for an audition for the next movie. So now we got to do some singing. I'm like, I don't need the singing. But yeah,
they made her look really good. Though.
She looked fantastic.
Everybody looked beautiful in the movie.
The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Yeah,
you like how he was just stealing different jackets from it. He didn't care whose it was. I'm like, all right, bro, I wouldn't steal their jackets, but you're working it. Okay,
it's a running
bit.
bit.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Catch that, The Gentleman and the Gentleman out on Netflix very, very, very soon, probably.